So we're going to cover two things. All right, two big things. I guess I should start by saying, you remember we talked about on Monday? I'm sore today because I worked out yesterday for the first time in probably 6 weeks or something. I ran all of a mile on the track and I went down the stairs to go downstairs to see if there might be an open bench press, which of course there wasn't, even though it was Tuesday. And I had to walk back up the stairs and I thought I was going to die. So cautionary tale about age and sedentariness, but I'm also sore from doing some things. So what is going on in my muscles that has made me sore? Okay. Edema. Yes, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I did one set. We talked about this, right? I did one set of 10 reps on a bench press machine yesterday because I couldn't get on a free bench. And I'm already like through here. I'm sore. What was I doing? So I have edema, right? What's actually happened in my muscles that has led to that edema, that has led to the immune response that has given me the edema and therefore the soreness? My muscles have torn. That's right. And I apologize. Do you have your nameplate? It's Madison or Mackenzie or McKenna or Michaela. I knew it was an M. Okay. Excellent. Michaela. All right. Michaela's sitting not where she. I also remember your names by where you sit. So when you guys move, it really throws me off. Okay. Good. So I have these small little micro tears. Okay. The small little micro tears. You guys may experience some of this on your own for our next lab. All right. So we're going to talk about how we determine your muscular fitness. All right. So this is our first foray into, remember, the class is Principles of Health and Fitness. We've covered a lot of, here's the stuff that goes on in your muscles. Here's how cross bridges form. This is the physiology of a muscle contraction. Now we're going to get into, let's put this in action. What does this mean in the real world? Are we going to know if Hensley is more fit than Amanda, who's more fit than Kylie, right? How we compare you ladies to the guys and vice versa. Like, what are the most accurate ways to do all of this? Okay, so if I can make this go, here we go. So in the most ridiculous possible definition that we can have, muscular fitness is defined as the ability to perform muscular work adequately. Okay, adequately. I don't know how you guys are, but imagine this. Okay, you guys submitted an assignment to me, and you said, Dr. Black, how did that do? And I say, Julianne, you did adequately on your assignment. How would you feel about that? If I said your assignment was adequate? Not great, okay? Right? You go on a date with someone and they're like, hey, how was your date? It was adequate. I don't really know what I think. It's kind of like it was fine, right? So I don't like that this is what's in here. This is what our definition is, but this is the official definition. So you have to say, well, what is muscular work? Work is force multiplied by distance, okay? What does adequately mean? I don't know, okay? In the most basic sense, muscular fitness means if I want to take my bag and do a curl, that I have enough strength to do the curl, to move through the range of motion that I want, and it is performed adequately, right? Like I did it, okay? That is our definition of muscular fitness, okay? It is going to encompass two primary things. One, strength, okay? And the second one is something called muscular endurance, which I don't like as a concept because physiologically, we're beginning to tip ourselves from strength really over into kind of aerobic metabolic function, but this kind of sits in between. So it's kind of a weird thing to talk about. And I'll try to make that a little bit more clear as we move along. Okay. So if, okay, Paige, if I ask you who in class do you think is the most has the most muscular fitness, you would probably look around and pick someone, right? In your mind. I'm not going to ask you to do that. We're not going to call out anyone or anything else, but you have an idea in your mind of what that might be, how you might do that. Okay. What's the primary thing that is going to be the driver of that to you? As you look around at other people in any kind of a group and I say, pick out who's the most muscularly fit, what's the first thing that you think of? Muscles. Okay, perfect. That's great. Who has the biggest muscles? You guys think that matters? Casey, do you agree with that? Okay, you do, but I probably don't. I agree with both of you. But can you explain to me, do you think, why do you think that's the default thing that we go to as it relates to our definition of muscular fitness? If I have bigger muscles, what am I also probably going to be able to do?
Produce more force.
Produce more force, right? Very good, Ken. Bigger muscles, more strength, right? That's kind of what we're thinking about, okay? Also, if we follow Instagram and TikTok and some of those things, we run into this idea of what we think of as people that are fit. We're oftentimes not thinking of their ability to do a certain movement or perform a task. We're really thinking of fitness as body composition in some ways, right? You're like, oh, the most fit person, well, they look like they have the biggest muscles, or they look like they have the most defined muscles. And so we're like, oh, I'm going to do a fitness competition. Well, what it really is it's a body composition competition, whereas other instances, it's going to be a little bit different. Okay, so very good. Now, many of you want to be physical therapist, occupational therapist, okay? Maybe you want to be a personal trainer, you want to be a strength coach, whatever that's going to be, right? We need to understand that our ability to test, interpret, and then base some sort of future training or rehab all comes back to why it's important to know and understand muscular fitness, okay? Are you weak in certain muscles? And by weak, I mean, do you lack a certain amount of strength in muscles? Okay. That lack of strength may mean you can't pick your arm up over your head. You can't walk upstairs, or it might mean you can't do 45 push-ups consecutively, or you can't squat 400 pounds. Okay. There's a wide range in there, but that's where we're going to get at. Okay. Understanding strength and local muscular endurance or fitness from one side of the body to the other in the same muscle groups can tell us about imbalances, right? You all may not think about that very much, but people that have multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, they've had a stroke, okay? They've had some other sort of, they have arthritis, they have some other sort of soft tissue injury. They may have one leg or arm or one side of the body that works better than the other. And that's okay. They can still do things, but walking in a certain way where one side dominates then may lead to further injuries because of all of that. So if we can understand what this is, what's going on, where there are differences, we can then design rehab protocols, actual training protocols in order to do all of those things. Okay, I went and lifted weights, I ran a mile, and then I rode the bike at a pretty brisk pace for 20 minutes yesterday. Okay, I was exercising in an effort to improve my both muscular fitness and my aerobic fitness. Okay, I was doing something that was designed to make myself stronger. Okay, which doesn't take much at this point in my life, but that's what I was doing. All right, the other piece, and you guys will see this when you do your resistance training critiques, where we run into a lot of problems is we use our assessments of fitness to guide what we do, but also to guide how effective is the thing that we've been doing, okay? If you go to rehab and let's just say they're rehabbing you from an anterior cruciate ligament injury in your right leg, we say, how strong are you? You come in 3 times a week, do some rehab protocol. You've been doing it for 6 weeks. if your insurance is paying for it, they want to know whether or not it's actually effective. Is it getting better? Okay. And then you as the therapist might think, well, we're doing one thing because that's what I was taught in school, but somebody else is doing it differently. Which one is better, right? What's better for my individual client? So we need ways to track our progress and to understand what all is happening. Okay. That's the why should we care about all of this. Okay. That's why we should care. So a couple of concepts that I want you all to get before we jump into kind of the actual test that we're going to do. Okay. Strength is defined as your ability to exert force. For your lab, I am going to ask you guys to go off on your own. Okay. Go to the Huff, go to, I don't know, wherever, if you go to a gym somewhere, go to Crunch, go to, I don't, is it Steel? What's the other one where all the, I don't know, one of my grad students used to be she would say a fitness model, but she goes to some particular gym. It always talks about all the guys taking steroids there. Anyway, ability to exert force, that's strength, okay? How strong are you? You guys are gonna go and find a place and you're gonna try to measure your ability to do, how strong are you at doing a bench press? You can do free weights, well, you can do it on a machine, it will be okay. We'll figure it out, all right? But you're gonna do that. As we learn, strength is determined by muscle size and your ability to turn on or recruit the motor units, turn on the muscle that you have. Which is why what Paige and Casey were saying when I say, who's the most muscularly fit, your first thought is big muscles. That's perfect. That's exactly what we should be thinking about, okay? Now, the other component of this is something called local muscular endurance. And this is the ability to continue to exert some submaximal force a number of times, okay? A number of times. Abby, how many bodyweight squats do you think you could do consecutively for us here? Did you do 100?
Yeah.
Did you do 200?
No.
No? Okay, you may not want to, like if we were really there, like threatening your dog or something, we could see, okay? But I know Kyle's like, oh God, that seems terrible. But the idea of local muscular endurance is Abby can squat her body weight. She could probably squat her body weight plus some other amount on top of all of that, okay? Because she can do her body weight more than once, we would say, okay, do your body weight, do it as many times as you possibly can, okay? And then we could ask Hensley to do the same thing and Amanda to do the same thing. And we could look at who can squat their body weight the most times. Whoever is at that may have more local muscular endurance. It's a submaximal thing, okay? But it's not really like your ability to run a mile or to run a 10K or a half marathon. It's not solely dependent upon the function of your aerobic metabolic system. So it's this kind of weird thing that sits in the middle. Most of you, if you haven't done it already, probably did it in junior high, the presidential physical fitness test, right? Where you do push-ups and sit-ups and sit and reach and those things. So the number of push-ups that you can do consecutively or in a minute, that's a test, not of your maximal strength, but of local muscular endurance. The number of crunches that you can do consecutively or in a given period of time, that's a measure of local muscular endurance. You guys will do both of those things as part of lab, okay? You'll do push-ups, crunches. Ladies in lab, you guys get to do the way the norms are set out. You guys get to do push-ups with your knees down. And guys, I'm sorry, we got to do regular push-ups. Okay. I had a gymnast, one of the gymnasts in class a couple of years ago, and she was like, I'm not doing push-ups with my knees down. And it was before COVID, we were in class, and she did like 100 freaking push-ups just like straight. And everyone in class was like, yep, okay, we get it. She's really fit. So the thing that makes you stop, okay, at the end of your muscular endurance is an idea of something called fatigue. Okay. So muscle fatigue is a very specific definition that means you cannot any longer produce the desired or expected amount of force. Okay. Abby, her desired amount of force is enough force to do a bodyweight squat. At some point, she can no longer produce that much force, so she has to stop doing those bodyweight squats. Okay. we could ask Kylie to hold her laptop out like this for as long as she can. At some point, not enough force, laptop has to come down. Okay, that's fatigue. Fatigue isn't, it's not like tired like I'm sleepy or tired like I'm kind of run down. There's a little bit of a difference, but from muscle fatigue as it relates to exercise is I could do something, I did it several times, and now I can't do it anymore. I can no longer get enough force to do this. Okay, so your endurance is determined by when you reach fatigue. Okay, just some things to kind of keep in mind. All right, so are there health benefits to being very fit? Yes, absolutely. Okay, being stronger, as I will show you guys in a few slides, being stronger is better, all other things being equal. Having more muscle is better, all other things being equal. Okay, preservation of fat-free or muscle mass increases your resting metabolic rate. Okay, it decreases your chances of developing type 2 diabetes. It decreases your chances of developing certain kinds of cardiovascular disease. It decreases the effects of osteoarthritis. There's a whole slew of things, okay, that having more fat-free mass or having more muscle can do. Okay, the training that we do that gets us strength and gets us muscle mass also will tend to enhance bone mineral density. You get stronger bones, right? Which you all don't really care about now, but when you're older, grandma falls over, she breaks her hip. Okay, the health outcomes post hip fracture are really bad. If you guys ever want to see some things that are scary, okay, you guys fall over, right? Because somebody whizzes by you walking down here on their Lime scooter and they're not paying attention and you fall over and you land, you probably don't break your hip. Okay, that's because you guys have done more, you have more fat-free mass, you've got more bone mineral. This is going to be good, right? The training plus the muscle mass means insulin sensitivity and glucose tolerance, which we'll talk about when we get to diabetes. That goes up. There's this whole range of stuff that's going to be really, really good. Okay, heart rate goes down, blood pressure goes down. You get these cardiovascular adaptations, right? You have an improved ability to do the activities of daily living. You can get up and down stairs, into and out of the bathtub, carry groceries, go play golf, whatever it is you want to do. Okay. And then you have better balance, so you don't fall down and break your hip. And then the last piece that is probably important for you guys, but it's also really important in older adults, and we'll talk about that when we get to older adults, is this idea of improved self-esteem and improved what we call self-efficacy. Okay? Being stronger, and this, a lot of this goes simply beyond like I have more muscle, therefore I feel like I look better or more attractive or whatever else. But this idea that like I have strength, I can do the things that I want to do in life. Okay, I can climb, I can go for a hike and climb up a mountain, or I can carry groceries, or I can, whatever it is, I can carry my grandkids around and things like that. People feel better about themselves. And in doing so, they have less anxiety, they have less depression, okay? They feel more connected to other people, they're able to go out and enjoy stuff. And that's really, really important because depression and suicide and things gets to be really, really problematic, even more so in old age. Okay? So there's grandma who it says can deadlift 255. That's not 255. That is on, that's on there. Grandma's deadlifting. Okay? Grandma needs to go to CrossFit. All right. I'm only partially joking about I make a lot of jokes about CrossFit, but one thing that they do at CrossFit is, by God, they work. Okay. I have some qualms on a few things, but they move a lot of weight. It's very intense, and there's a lot of community in the midst of all of that, which helps with self-esteem. There's a lot of good things that are going to come into this. Okay. So those are the benefits. Now you're like, all right, Dr. Black, now comes the scary part. Okay. Your strength will predict when you die. Okay? What we have here, this is grip strength and mortality rates. As part of lab, on Monday in class, I'm going to bring a grip strength dynamometer. You guys are all going to squeeze it. We're going to write down what your number is. Okay? Based upon that number, in these papers, there are statistical equations. We can plug your value in and predict how old you're going to be when you die. Assuming that your thing moves along a similar kind of time of decline and all of that. It doesn't work very well in you guys. You're way, way, way too young. But in older adults, what you can see here is they took a bunch of people and they measured their grip strength. And then they followed them for like 25 years afterwards. Okay? And they looked at how many people when they died. So these people were already like 65, I think, when they were enrolled. And they followed them out. And so here, this is men, this is women, okay? So they enroll them here at time point 0, and we follow some of them out here to 25 kind of on all of this. And so by 25 years, almost all of them have passed away. It's terrible, but this is what we do with studies. Okay? Men that had a grip strength of greater than 74 kilograms, this group, right? At any point in time out there, they were higher up on their survival probability. So you read this as at 0.8, this means that at this time point far out, 80% of that group was still alive. And at 0.2, then 20% of that group were still alive. So you can note, the stronger I am, the greater the chance of the probability that I'm actually alive at any point in time after. Okay? Now, you guys are going to measure your grip strength, and very few of you are going to be at 74 kilograms, guys. So this is because of these are data from like the 70s, back when people's jobs weren't to type at a computer all day, but you get out and did manual labor and a lot more things like that. So, and medicine wasn't as great. So don't freak out and think like, oh God, my grip strength is 50 kilograms. I'm going to die next week. You're not going to. In that way. Similar relationship in women, you'll all see the numbers are a little bit different. But here, we've used grip strength to predict when you're going to die. Okay? TJ, why do you think grip strength of all things is going to predict when we're going to die?
I guess it's kind of, well, I don't know if baseline is the right word, but it allows you to tell how fit somebody is for carrying that day's activity. Like
Okay.
That affects stress and self-esteem.
That's right.
Like that, which all play a part of it.
Sure. You're right, TJ. Do y'all do a lot of grip? The thing was you have to grip stuff during the day? You do, Kate? Do a lot of stuff where it requires like maximal grip?
No, just one working out.
Just when you're working out. Okay. All right. Do you think it might be better if we measured like quad strength or glute strength or gastrocs or something, or even your biceps or something like that? So the reason that we use grip strength is it's easy. I'm going to hand you guys this thing on Monday, and all you got to do is squeeze. Boom, we've got it. It's quick. It's easy. It requires this sort of cheap thing. But generally, what we see among people outside of some bros is people that are stronger in all of the muscles in their body are going to have a stronger grip strength, right? If your quads are strong, you're probably also strong everywhere else. I joke about bros. We're just talking about I only work out arms and upper body and I never squat. Like my upper body is a lot stronger than my lower body. So that's why we use grip. There's nothing particular. You don't die from a lack of strength. You don't die from the lack of, I can't hold on to things. These people die from cancer and diabetes and strokes and cardiovascular disease and all of those kind of the same stuff that, that we've already talked about. Okay. Now, there are the same data. This is basically the exact same thing. This was done with knee extensor strength. Okay. It's a little more difficult to get knee extensor strength in everybody, but the relationship is essentially the same. Okay. If you have stronger knee extensor muscles, so your quads are stronger, you're going to live longer. Okay. And so it's basically the same kind of thing, same kinds of relationships. Okay. Everyone always freaks out because I'm like, oh, your grip strength predicts when you're going to die. And then we do grip strength, and everyone's like, we are not as strong grip strength wise as a society as we were when a lot of these normative values were put together 30 and 40 years ago. So don't freak out about all of that. Okay. So that's why this stuff matters. Okay. That's why this matters. talked about these things. We've talked about these things. All right, so let's talk about some actual tests, okay? If I want to know, let's just say, if I want to know how strong Sophie's calf muscles are, Sophie, what should I do? How would I test your calf muscles? Okay, I wouldn't have you do a grip strength thing, right? So the idea of testing things, okay, is that the tests are very, very specific. So if you have a muscle group that we think is injured or needs to be rehabilitated or that you need to train, you have to test that muscle group very specifically, okay? There's no single best test for evaluating the whole body stuff. Probably the best one is to do a squat or a leg press or something like all of that. That's probably as close as we can get. Tests are very specific to the kind of contraction you do. Is it isometric? Okay. Is it concentric? Is it eccentric? Because your strength differs among all of those. It's very specific to the velocity or speed of your movement, because again, that affects strength. The type of equipment that you're using. Are you using free weights? Are you using a particular machine? Are you using TheraBand? Is someone just like you go to your therapist and like, okay, well, push against me. And they're just kind of, they're just kind of going by feel on those kinds of things. And it's very specific to a certain range of motion. Okay. All of those things that we talked about last week that affect force production, recruitment, firing rate, velocity, range of motion, contraction time, all of those things need to be taken into consideration when we do fitness testing. Okay. And so there's not one right way to do it. We just have to pick what we think is the most appropriate. Okay. All right. So when we do this, you guys are going to do a host of all of these things as part of lab. You're going to do a dynamic strength test. You're going to do an isometric strength test. You can do a couple of measures of local muscular endurance. Dynamic strength testing means that you're moving against the weight of your body through a range of motion or against an external load through a range of motion. Okay. This is traditionally thought of as something called a 1 repetition maximum. It's called a 1 rep max. Okay. Or a 1 RPM. Okay. The most weight you can squat through a full range of motion 1 time. The most weight you can bench press, right, through a full range of motion 1 time. That's a 1 rep max. It's dynamic because you're moving, right? These are good because they correlate with sport performance somewhat better than isometric testing, okay? They usually involve concentric, eccentric actions, which are what most sports and normal daily movements are going to entail. Generally, they're accessible. They're generally relatively inexpensive, right? You guys should have access to these kinds of things relatively readily. And then, weirdly enough, some people like these kinds of tests better than a corresponding isometric test because they're physically moving something. You can see the weight moving. The bar moves. The dumbbell moves. Whereas you do the grip strength, you just squeeze and nothing happens. Right? There's no work because there's no movement that's being done. Okay. The disadvantage to dynamic tests and 1 rep max tests is what we're actually measuring is how strong are you at the weakest point in a range of motion. Okay? At the weakest point in a range of motion. If I do a squat, and I got my stretchy jeans on today. If I do a squat, I am weaker down here than I am right here. Okay? It's all about knee, the moment arm in my knee. So if I can get down here, what we're really measuring is what is my strength that I can move at that bottom part of that range of motion. When you do a bicep curl, we're really measuring how strong are you at the kind of very, very bottom end part of that range of motion. If you get past that sticking point, then we can do the top. So we just have to keep that in mind, okay? and we can't really measure strength at different velocities. These are things that we can do, but it requires special equipment. Okay, it requires special equipment. Okay, so I talked about what a 1 RM is. For some people and for some movements, doing a 1 rep max may not be easy or feasible or particularly safe. Okay. So then you ask, well, if I can't safely have grandma do a 1 rep max for a squat, what could I do to still get some kind of dynamic strength testing and estimate what we think her maximal strength is? We do something called a multiple RM, or a multiple rep max. All right. And in that instance, we say, okay, we don't think it's safe to load you up with as much weight as you can possibly do, but let's try to give you something that's like 60% of what we think the max is. So here, we think you can squat 400 pounds. Let's give you 250 and do as many reps as you can. And if we can keep that under 10 or so, then I could do 10 reps, but not 11. Then our 10 rep maximum is X amount. Okay. There are tables, and if anybody wants one, I can give you one, where I can figure out what your multiple rep max is, and we can guesstimate from there what your 1 rep max is. Okay. We do that a lot in older populations and people that have had injury where we're worried that if we give them a lot of weight, that their joints may not hold up, that range of motion may be too great, or they just may not be able to handle that particularly well. Okay. That makes sense, guys? We are not going to do a multiple rep max as part of lab. You guys are going to do an actual 1 RM. Okay. When you look for and you're going to do your critique on a resistance training program, they may talk about you're going to work out at something that is some percentage of your 10 RM or whatever. So sometimes you'll see things like that. They're going to be there. Okay. All right. So there's some procedures for 1 rep max testing that are in there that you guys can look over. I want to show you guys this table because we're going to use this as part of lab. All right. This is so. I do something. I'm looking around. So, Evan, have you ever done a bench press? Do you have any idea off the top of the head about what you think you can bench press? 1 time. Sure. Okay, so you're probably like 280 or 285, somewhere in there. Okay. All right. You know what? I'm not going to ask how much you weigh. It's okay. We can maybe imagine I'm looking around and saying, Mackenzie, have you ever done a bench press? No. Okay. Can we all agree, right? If we just sort of generally look that Mackenzie is a smaller person than Evan. Can we agree at that? How would I compare those two people? Is it fair to say Evan can bench press this much, Mackenzie can bench press this much? Well, clearly, if Evan can do more, he has more fitness than Mackenzie does. Do you think that's fair? It's not fair. Okay, ladies, this is the patriarchy at work. Okay, this is the patriarchy at work. Or if you are, we'll just say a smaller gentleman. This is the larger gentleman patriarchy at work. Okay, we need to compare strength. Okay, we very often need to try to normalize that to body size or to muscle mass. Okay, I'm not kidding that it took us until like the 90s to figure out that we were punishing women for just generally being smaller people than men and saying, oh, they're less fit. They're not less fit. They're just smaller. Okay? They have no control over all of that. So what you see here is this is a table of, we're going to call them normative values. They tested thousands of people. Okay? And we generated, we're going to go back to Kyle and stats and talk about a normal distribution of things. Have you all done normal distributions yet? Probably not. Okay. Somebody else had stats, but generally, if I were to test all of you guys, Y'all are going to kind of cluster in the middle. There are going to be some people that are going to come off out on the ends, kind of really strong or not very strong. They tested all of this. They have them by age, and they generate these percentile ranks. Okay. What they've done for upper body strength, this is bench press 1 rep max. Okay. But they have normalized it to body weight. And so we're going to try to allow a more accurate comparison between Mackenzie and Evan by normalizing how much weight they can lift to how much they weigh. It might actually be better if we can measure, if it's bench press, let's measure how much sort of actual pectoral muscle they have or something, okay? But this is our kind of nod in that direction. So what you guys see is in 20 to 29-year-old men, the 90th percentile, so you're in the top 10% of bench press strength to body weight, you can bench press about 1.5 times your body weight, okay? About 1.5 times your body weight. So if you weigh 100 pounds, that means you can bench 150, so on and so forth, okay? We look at women, the 90th percentile value for women is about 90% of their body weight, okay? So if you weigh 100 pounds, you can bench press 90, all right? And so all that this tells us, and so that means that in some ways, what we see though a lot of is even compared to body weight, men on the bench press tend to be stronger per body weight than women. Why do we think that is? Okay.
Testosterone.
Testosterone, okay. Mackenzie, you said you'd never done a bench press. Have you exercised at some point in your life doing some other thing? Yeah. Why have you not chosen to bench press? You don't know, okay. Guys, other girls, if y'all have done a bench press, why did you choose to bench press? You spend a lot of your life shoving people away from you like this? Physically, not emotionally, or things like that, right? Do you do a lot of this? Do we do a lot of this in our life? Unless you're an offensive lineman in football, no. A bench press is a relatively useless, actual practical application of strength, okay? Why do people do bench press? I don't know. Because I went to the gym and people were doing bench press. So I thought I'm going to do bench press. Okay? So, but what does that mean? What does that mean? More men tend to bench press more often than women do, right? For a host of reasons. So therefore, they're already going to be stronger because they're doing that particular activity, right? If we took women and we actually trained them and found women that bench press just as much as men, we look at their kind of strength to body weight ratio, they tend to be very similar in that particular way, okay? So this gets back to muscle is muscle, okay? Muscle in women works just as well as muscle in men does. If you find and you normalize out how well trained they are, it all comes to be the same. But we can't just say, okay, well, you can lift 100 pounds and you can lift 150, so you're more fit. It's a little more complicated, okay? You guys will do this. You're going to find a place to bench press, right? You're going to find a place to bench press. And you're going to get a number, and you're going to divide it by your body weight, and you're going to find where you fall on our upper body strength norms, okay? And then you can tell us, all right, well, I'm in the 30th percentile for all of this. Maybe I should actually think about doing a bench press. I don't know. But that's how these things work. And you will note then, as age goes up, right, the values are going to tend to fall. We get weaker as we age. I very much resemble that remark, as it was made very clear to me yesterday. And a lot of that is also driven simply by that we don't do as much, right? I hadn't done a bench press in maybe 6 months until I did it yesterday. So it's been a bit, okay? Does that make sense? You guys understand all of that? All right. It's really important when we look at these things to try to understand what are we doing? Why are we dealing with the data the way that we are so that we can make accurate estimates of, are you actually deficient in a particular area or not? Okay, so we can decide, how do we train? How do we rehab? Is our training to rehab being effective, et cetera, et cetera? Okay. Anybody ever seen a machine that looks like this? Anybody ever been to a PT clinic, or maybe your high school athletic training complex, if you went to a really kind of nice, expensive private high school, or if you've been over, you work with the athletic trainers here. No? This thing is called an Isokinetic Dynamometer. It's basically a giant robot that tests how strong you are. Okay? We have one of these in my lab. Dr. Pereira has one in his lab. Dr. Mike had one in his lab. They're primarily used in research. But what it does is we can change the configuration on this thing, and essentially the robot will test how strong you are through any range of motion for any muscle group in the body. Okay? And it records things in real time. So she's doing a knee extension. So you sit in the robot and you just do knee extension, and the robot resists against you. And so you can control how fast they go. You can control what the range of motion is, and it records the force output at every instant in time through the test. So I can figure out she's doing knee extension. Well, at 90 degrees of knee flexion, I get this much force. And then at 120 degrees of knee flexion, I get this much force all the way out. So you can measure it through the full range of motion and figure out, are you stronger or weaker at certain places? Are you lacking things at certain speeds? Okay. So they can be really, really useful, but a brand new one of these machines costs about $80,000. Okay. About $80,000. I have one in my lab that the computer runs on a DOS prompt, and you guys don't even know what that is. Okay. When I got my very first computer when I was in junior high back in the dark ages, you could put commands in at what's called a DOS prompt. That's the sort of the computer language. There was no Windows. Windows did not exist. Bill Gates was not yet a billionaire. Okay, they're that old. So mine is from like the 80s. Right, we bought it refurbished because it was only like 10 grand instead of 80, and it works fine. These things are really expensive, so most people don't have access to all of these. If you take exercise physiology lab class with Dr. Pereira, you guys will use one of these, and you will measure what's called a force velocity curve. You'll measure a force position curve. He'll show you how you do this. We'll show you how we know that when contractions go faster rather than slower, you get less force. So they're really valuable, and you can use them, but they're somewhat infeasible. Okay, somewhat infeasible. Okay. On the left here, this is the hand grip dynamometer that we're going to use, or a rough approximation. You hold it and you squeeze. We also have one of these things where this guy is standing. He stands, and you can, depending upon how long the chain is, you could stand and try to do an upright row and pull, or it could be enough where he could try to use his legs. If you shorten it down, it's almost like an isometric deadlift in some ways. Or you could flip around and try to do a curl. And so you can do the same kind of thing, but it's isometric. So you're squeezing against or pulling against a stationary object. And it's like when you hang a weight on a scale or something, right? Like it pulls it to a certain place that tells us how much force is there. That's what we're doing with this. Okay. These are better estimates of the maximal force capacity per size of your muscle than a 1 rep max. Okay. This better correlates to how big a muscle is. But again, in your life, can you think of the last time, Kenzie, you did an isometric contraction?
I actually have done.
Okay, but like this morning, did you do an isometric contraction like while you were brushing your teeth, or when you were walking to class, or if you run or anything like that? People, we don't do isometric contractions outside of like posture, okay, very often in our daily lives. And so from that way, it's a little less applicable. But again, we're going to do this, okay? So you're all going to do a 1 rep max on the bench press. You're going to do a hand grip squeeze to get that. So we're going to do a dynamic test. We're going to do an isometric test. And then we're going to do a push-up and a sit-up test. We're going to measure local muscular endurance, okay? Okay. The ones that we're going to do typically are what are called field tests. And by field test, I mean we don't need any advanced equipment, all right? You're going to do a push-up. Guys, you can do the standard position. Ladies, y'all are going to do the modified position where your knees are on the ground, okay? And you're going to do as many push-ups as you can consecutively with good form, okay? Here we go. Boom. Do as many push-ups as you can. Then we're going to do the abdominal curl or the crunches. Do as many crunches as you can. Sometimes it's in like a minute or 2 minutes. Other times it's just do as many as you can consecutively. And there are, again, normative values. I did 30 push-ups, okay, before I couldn't do anymore. I am a 27-year-old man. That means I'm in the 50th percentile or something like that. Okay? So we'll kind of see how we want to do this. To be able to test local muscular endurance, I want you all to know this, okay? You have to be able to do more than 15 repetitions at whatever it is, or it's not a test of endurance. It's a test of a multiple rep maximum strength, okay? So it gets a little bit tricky. If you have people, right, there may be some women that are y'all's age, ladies, that can't do 15 regular push-ups. To be honest, I'm not sure I could do 15 regular push-ups at this point in my life, okay? So that's why we do the modified. We're trying to get to a place where we can get over that value of 15, okay? And so if it's under 15, then it's just a measure of strength. We're measuring something different, okay? We're measuring something different. That's why we modify these things in the way that we do, okay? Local muscular endurance, in some instances, is more applicable to everyday real life than things where you do maximal strength. Okay? Walking, in some instances, is a measure of local muscular endurance. Okay? Going up several flights of stairs. Anybody live in the freshman dorms over there when y'all were freshmen? You ever walk up, like live on like the 12th floor, have to walk up all the stairs because the elevator was busted? That's a measure of local muscular endurance, right? To do those kinds of things. And so in that way, maybe not knowing how many push-ups you do, again, you don't do a lot of this every day, but knowing that like in lower body musculature or things that people do repetitive tasks with their arms that are relatively heavy, right? Like you're loading boxes or things at the UPS place or at Amazon. These may be relatively helpful, okay? I have done in a previous job, at my very first job, we did tests like this for the university's human resources department to test some of their some of their hourly employees that worked in like the maintenance department and that did like on the grounds crew and stuff, that they'd had an injury or they'd had a heart attack or something. We were testing them to make sure, one, that it was safe, but two, did they have enough local muscular endurance to actually do the jobs that they were wanting, to let them come back to work and those kinds of things. So this kind of stuff is done. I have another acquaintance, I won't call him a friend, but he does these kinds of things, and then he spends most of his time testifying in court on sort of insurance disputes and disability disputes and things. He's kind of the expert witness on, we tested these people, can they do this, can they not do this, are they actually able to do the tasks that their jobs require or not, as they're arguing back and forth over, right, I can't do this, I should get disability or not, and those kinds of things. So there are things that go into this that can be really applicable in the real world. Okay. All right. Here's the norms for the push-up test. So just think to yourself, this is what you guys are aiming for. Again, they're not percentiles, they're just like excellent, very good, good, fair, needs improvement. I'm sure as hell. Wait, look at this. I mean, this age group. Okay. I'm probably not in these. I could probably do 10. We won't do that in class and test. On other times when we've actually been able to do all this like together in class, I will do the same test with you guys, so y'all can all chuckle at my general lack of fitness on things. But just think, all right, guys, can you do 30 push-ups straight? That's going to put you about here, okay? Ladies, where are y'all going to fall in the midst of these? So y'all going to look at this, and we're going to use these tables. And you can say, okay, maybe I need to go and do more push-ups, or I need to go and do bench press. Same thing if we look at the curl-ups, okay? I'm going to tell you guys, and I'll see if I can find some different norms, but these are from the American College of Sports Medicine. And basically, if you can do 25 consecutive crunches, they say that you have excellent local muscular endurance. usually somewhere like north of 90% of our students in class can do 25. A lot of people can do 50 or 60 or something like all of that. So I think I have a different set of norms that we finally found in the midst of this. But if you get to 25 and you just want to stop, that's great. You're a baller at doing push-ups. Okay. The last little bit on this, and then we're going to switch into some programming things. Okay. When you do fitness testing, we need to make some considerations for old people, people with particular kind of limitations in their range of motion or their ability to move. Okay. So when we test older adults, which if you guys want to do personal training, if you guys want to do PT or OT, you're going to see a lot of older adults. Okay. A lot of older adults. You'll see my parents all the time. Okay. There is a thing called the senior fitness test. Okay. And it's going to get at a little bit of strength, endurance, agility, and balance that they need to do everyday activities. It's not about how much can you bench press. Okay. They do a 30-second chair stand, which is just what it says. You get 30 seconds and you go from sitting to standing in a chair as many times as you can. Okay. That's probably pretty easy for you guys to do. But for some older adults, that is difficult. It requires balance. It requires strength. Okay. It requires a little bit of endurance. And then they do a one-arm curl. I think I have a picture in the next one. Here's the chair sit. Okay. And then we do the one-arm curl where ladies get a 5-pound dumbbell, guys get an 8-pound dumbbell. You can sit there, you can spot them, and they do how many curls they can do. Okay. In 30 seconds. And that gives us some rough estimate of upper body strength. The weight is light, so we're not very likely to sort of cause any kind of muscular or joint injury from doing all of that. Spot them very easily. Okay. It's a dynamic test, but it's generally going to be kind of a local muscular endurance test. We don't really care how much grandma can bench press. Okay. Or how much she can deadlift, even though that's really cool if she can. Okay. So just things to keep in mind as we try to measure these things in different populations. Okay. I've listed some other tests in here. You guys don't have to know them. You may encounter them. There's this YMCA bench press. You put 80 pounds on the bar and you do the bench press as many times as you can. There's lots of things for doing it in children and adolescents. When you guys did the presidential physical fitness test that we do in a lot of schools, that's the same kind of thing. We can argue about whether we should do that. In Arkansas, they do skin fold testing of all kids in junior high. And then they tell their parents if they think they're like overweight or obese on all of these things, which to me just seems a whole lot like body shaming and like parent shaming in the midst of all of this. I don't think that's a particularly great thing. We like here have very high rates of adolescent and teenage obesity, and leads to a lot of health problems. I'm not sure that's the best way to go about trying to combat it, but you can make all of these measures. In kids, we care much less about maximal strength. We want to do kind of controlled ranges of motion and things like that. Okay, so that's kind of what we've got there. Okay, let's stop. We'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll do a little bit on some programming things and move. Okay. Now the fun part. All right, we'll start in the back. Casey McKenzie, who's speaking for the group? You guess. Okay. What did you guys arrive at that we should do?
Okay, so for A, it's gonna be sumo squats.
Sumo squats.
We're doing leg day. Yeah.
It's leg day. Okay. Okay.
3 by 10.
3 by 10. 3 what by 10 what? Okay. I know. I'm just for everybody's purposes, I want to make sure we're all on the same page. 3 sets of 10 repetitions. Okay. How much weight am I lifting? Did y'all talk about that?
Well, we said if kind of depends, if you don't wanna give someone like 10 pounds and then it not challenge them at all, so.
Okay.
If you could start at like 5 pounds and then go up.
Okay. Okay. So we're gonna say 5 pounds and then move on. Okay. That'll work. Abby, Hensley, Kinsley, or Hensley, were you with them? Yeah, for y'all's group. Who's talking?
I can't.
Okay.
What do you?
What were you doing? Like, what did you guys arrive?
Like a full body.
Gosh, okay, so right now that sounds better to me than a full body. All right, let's what you got.
So we had a warm up, walks or jog on treadmill for 5 to 10 minutes.
Warm ups, lame.
Bicep curls. We're assuming this is probably female.
Okay, curls.
5 to 8 pound dumbbell, 8 to 10 reps for 3 to 4 sets.
I'm sorry, you said how many reps? 8 to 12?
8 to 10.
Okay, and you said with like a 500 dumbbell?
5 to 8.
Okay,
And squats with body weight. Then same sets and reps.
okay.
Lunges with 5 pound weight, same set. Reps.
Kind of the same
Yeah.
general scheme. Okay, that's everything. Do you have anything that didn't kind of adhere to something similar-ish to this? Is that kind of all the same?
Crunches and planks.
Planks. Okay, we'll have planks on there. Okay.
And then 20 to 30 second hold for 2%.
Okay. Somewhat similar, somewhat different. How did you arrive at 5 to 8 pounds for doing curls?
We're just talking about a very beginner person.
Okay.
We don't want to do too much.
We don't want them to do too much.
I was assuming that I'm writing this workout and they're going to do it themselves. I'm not going to be there to show them correct form
Okay.
and I don't want them to get hurt. So
Okay.
start with a low weight.
Okay. Very reasonable to do those kinds of things. Okay. Very reasonable. Just always curious. Okay. We'll go back page.
We had a similar thing for the full body workout with a light warm up with like a 10-minute walking dynamic stretching.
Okay.
And then body weight, push-ups, squats, and lunges for 3 steps of 8.
Push-ups, squats, lunges. That's good. 3 sets of 8 body weight. Okay. Anything else, or kind of the same in that same vein? Anything where you weren't doing kind of 3 by 8 or any kind of weird thing that wasn't body weight or something like that?
Had like using machines, cafe raises, and leg press.
Okay. Okay. So let me, on the leg press, let's just say, I'm sorry, you guys probably can't see over there. How much weight were you going to have them use, or how much resistance on the leg press?
We didn't really think about that, but whatever they were comfortable with.
Or they were comfortable with? Okay. That's fine. That's fine. Okay. Very good. Amanda, Julianne, our nameless person in the middle. Carmela.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Carmela, who is speaking for the group?
So we did like a full body like beginner workout. So we started with like a warm up and we said Stairmaster for 5 minutes. And
Guys in your warm-ups. Just get in there and go, people.
then,
No, it's okay. Great. So warm up, all right. And then you said Stairmaster, but what was the actual sort of?
we said bench press 30 by 8.
I like it. Bench. How much weight?
Maybe the bar.
Maybe the bar. You're gonna say bar, question mark. What if you can't lift the bar?
Yeah, the lighter one.
The smaller bar.
What was it?
They do. They make bars that weigh less. They do. Absolutely. Okay.
You said squats 3x10 and then buys and tricep curls 3x10.
Squat, 3x10, 5, 3x10. Okay. How did y'all pick weight on that? Whatever you want.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not a challenge.
Start slow, to work on their forms instead of beginning.
Okay. Need to work on my form. I'm just gonna say low in that way. Okay. Anybody have anything that was particularly different than this? I apologize for my other groups that haven't had a chance, just as since I've seen sort of an emerging theme with. Does anybody have anything that's was appreciably different that you really want to tell us about? Anybody like, I'm gonna do 12 sets of 2 or anything like that? No? You guys all about the same? Somewhere? Anybody have a different way than just pick whatever you're comfortable with for how you determine how much weight they were lifting? Sure. Their goal matters. The goal matters for sure. For sure. Okay. Do you all think there's a more formal way of doing it? So we'll pause for a moment. Okay. You guys did very well. Okay. You did very well. This is a very reasonable thing for us. You're all kind of there. You're all doing fine. But where I think that we need to be a little more careful and a little bit more clear is the exact same place that everyone always messes up. Okay. You guys are, for next Wednesday, you are going to go online, or there are these things called magazines. I don't know if you guys have ever seen a magazine. They make magazines. We still get them at the Black household. We don't ever read them. They just sit in a basket. I don't really know why we still get them, but anyway, you're going to find a workout. You're going to find a resistance training program, okay, that lasts at least 8 weeks. And you're going to critique it. Okay? And we're going to cover a little bit more information today on kind of how we're going to get into that in the next 15 minutes or so. But you're going to say, they're doing this and this is good. They're doing this and this is not so great. Here's how I would change it. Here's what I would recommend that they do, et cetera, et cetera. And the one place where things are vague a lot of the time, the one place that if we go over to the Huff right now and watch creepily people working out, right? I made the mistake one day in a class several years ago of telling people like, no, like just go over there and like film somebody on your phone working out. And like, then they're like, you realize that's like a felony, right? Like, oh God, it probably is. So if we were to go watch people, we would go ask them what they're doing. The most common place that people make mistakes, okay, where they lose some level of effectiveness is in the place where you guys were being a little bit vague. Whatever you're comfortable with. I'm comfortable doing nothing, right? I'm comfortable doing that 5-pound weight because it's easy, okay? So, but maybe what I'm comfortable with, I told you guys, like, right, you're a beginner, you've never done stuff, we need to learn how to do it. Let's assume I'm not a beginner necessarily anymore. What I'm comfortable with may not be the thing that's going to be very effective, okay? And as we get through this, I'll tell you guys, that's the place where people mess up. We're going to call it intensity or resistance, the weight that people are lifting, okay? Most people do fine. They're going to do a couple of sets. They're going to do 5 or 6 or 12 reps on thing. The thing that people mess up is how much weight they lift, okay? So we're gonna go back to Kinsey and Hensley and Abby's group. If you've got a non-beginner, we'll go find them right now at the Huff. They're lifting 5-pound dumbbells and they're doing curls or things with all of that. They are absolutely wasting their time. Okay? They're wasting their time. It's easy. Every one of you can curl 5 pounds like 75 times, is going to be my guess. And you're not going to do it 75 times, you're going to do it 10, right? You're not even tired, you're not fatigued at the end, okay? Now, sometimes the bros go the other direction, right? Too much weight, too few at times, and we kind of get these things. But there's a rhyme and a reason to this. There is a procedure that we'll go through, and it's just what we talked about. To know how much weight you need to lift, we need to know the most weight that you can lift. We need to assess your 1 rep max. We must do muscular fitness assessments, okay? How much can you curl 1 time? How much can you squat 1 time? What is your max strength? And then we give everybody, this works if you're not very strong or if you're really, really strong, then we prescribe for 10 repetitions some percentage of that maximal strength, okay? And that then lets us know that's approximately how much you should be able to do 10 times, but maybe not 11, or maybe 11 times, but not 12, okay? And that's where people mess up. They're just like, oh, well, I do this. Well, it's not intense enough. Like, we miss on all of those things. We tend to underestimate the amount of weight that we're going to lift, or that we can lift. And so then people you're not getting, down to sound very gross. You're not making all the gains that you possibly could at the end of all of this, because you're not working hard enough. You're in there and you're doing things. And if you're going to go to the trouble to go in there and do it, which is good, then let's make it as effective as we possibly can during that time period when we're doing those things, okay? When you see me puttering my ass around on the track, that's all I got, right? Like, I'm watching my watch, my heart rate's where I want it to be. I'm not going very fast, but that's just because I'm out of shape. That's all I can do, okay? But there's ways that we can do this that are going to make it somewhat more effective, okay? So let me continue to try to move some of this forward, okay? And so when we do program, this is going to come back to what Julian, what you guys pointed out, that the goal matters. When we do resistance exercise prescription, where we give people a workout to do, okay, we want to figure out and understand this scheme. I'm going to exercise or train, I'm going to do something. While I'm doing that bout of exercise, there will be a change in the physiology. My heart rate goes up, my blood pressure goes up. There's metabolic turnover, I'm using energy. I'm forming cross bridges, I'm breaking cross bridges, right? I'm sending signals across the neuromuscular junction. There's an acute change in your physiology. Whatever this is, this disruption of homeostasis provides a stimulus that drives some adaptation, increase in muscle size, increase in strength, better motor unit recruitment, right? Whatever that's going to be, which then, if that happens over a long period of time, changes how big my muscles are, it changes how they work, right? And then that allows me to then be able to do whatever my training goal was. My goal was to be able to bench press 100 pounds. I can only bench 50 now. I need to train in a way that provides the right stimulus to get the right adaptation to make me stronger so I can reach my training goal. So in a lot of ways, we do this backwards. What's your goal? Let's work backwards from there. If my goal is to have bigger muscles, and I need to figure out, okay, well, that means that I need to drive protein synthesis. So what's the adaptation that lets me get to that goal? And then I need to train so I get the right stimulus to do this, okay? So if you want to get better at doing a bench press, don't squat. Don't go ride a bike, okay? That seems really obvious, but a lot of people do it, they don't do it that way, okay? They don't do it that way. My poor father, who is now 75 years old, or soon to be 75 years old, was a marathon runner and has a son who has a PhD in exercise physiology, and I cannot convince him that riding his bike doesn't help him be a better runner. He has it, and I'm like, Dad, no. I'm like, you're already too fit. You're not getting an increase in VO2 max. You're getting better at riding your bike by riding your bike. It doesn't transfer. Y'all will find workouts and be like, oh, do a cross training day. Is my goal to be a better cross trainer? Maybe. But are you going to be a triathlete? If it tells you, like, go ride the bike today, you're getting better at the bike, right? If you lift a heavy weight, you're getting better at lifting that heavy weight. If you lift the 5-pound dumbbell, if you do it enough times, you get better at lifting the 5-pound dumbbell, but you may not even induce enough change to get any kind of stimulus. And that's where we get a lot of this stuff wrong. Okay. So generally what you guys put on here is very good. We just need to tweak what this is. A couple of days a week, 2 or 3 or 4 sets, 8 to 10 reps. That's it. That's as good as you guys are, as anybody else can do. Anybody who tells you otherwise is selling you something. They're selling you something. They want you to pay them to train you, which is fine. I'll pay someone to yell at me, so I'll go. That's okay. I'm all right with that, right? That is okay. But there's not some other magic thing like, oh, well, I did 7 sets of 2.5 repetitions of quarter curls, and that worked the bottom half of my bicep rather than the top half. No, all that, it's all junk. Okay? It's all junk. We make it way too complicated. What we miss is this. We don't get enough stimulus to fit whatever our training goal and our adaptation is. So what I'm going to give you guys, okay? Uh-oh, did I go one too far? So what I'm going to give you guys is some very, very simple guidelines. And then we're going to talk about how a framework for looking at other programs that's going to make all of this work. Here are the American College of Sports Medicine's resistance training guidelines for otherwise healthy adults. So you guys, okay? Every major muscle group, big muscle groups, quads, glutes, pecs, okay, lats, deltoids, big muscle groups should be trained a couple of days per week, okay, 2 to 3 days per week, 2 to 4 sets. Do compound exercises, squats, okay, deadlift, power clean if you can do it, where it crosses multiple joints, 8 to 12 reps at a weight that is approximately 60 to 80% of the maximal weight that you can lift. Okay? Perform all repetitions through as full and safe a range of motion as possible. That's it. For the vast majority of you guys, for what your goals are, this is great. You will get stronger, your muscles will get bigger, your ability to get up and down stairs, and whatever it is that you want to do, this is sufficient for the vast, vast majority of people. Where people mess up is the 60 to 80% of 1 rep max. They don't lift enough weight, okay? Or they were doing fine initially, and they never bother to retest how much stronger they've gotten. And so they keep lifting that same weight that used to be difficult, but now is not that difficult. And so now they're not going to get any further adaptations. That's it. Okay. This is it. This is the whole thing right there. Okay. That's the whole kit and caboodle. Y'all will find all these programs. They're like, oh, we'll do this, and I'm gonna do a body weight thing because I don't want to get too big of muscles, or I don't want to get bulky, or whatever, or we're gonna do 12 sets of 1 and all these things. This is pretty much, this is it. This is it, guys. Okay. The thing that people mess up by not lifting enough weight is they do not get what's called overload. They don't get overload. In order to drive physiological adaptations, the body needs to be forced to work and do more than what it normally does. Okay? So it's really simple. We'll go back to our thing from earlier. If Mackenzie's never done a bench press, just asking her to do a bench press is going to give us overload. She's never done it before. That's more than we've ever done. Okay? If we've got someone that bench presses 4 days per week at a certain thing, we're going to do a lot more than that. We're going to do it in a different way to get our overload. The easiest way to overload is to just lift more weight. Okay? The easiest way is to lift more weight. It needs to be hard. And that's why everyone asks me if I like to exercise. I say, no, I hate exercise. If you're doing it right, it's not fun. It's unpleasant, right? Because you're overloading. I feel great when I'm done, because I've accomplished something. Some people that run are like, oh no, I like to run. That's good for them. Running sucks, right? I gotta be on the bike and I need to listen to music while I'm reading a book and I'm watching The Sopranos or something. I need all the distraction that I can get because it's terrible. All right. But that's the idea of overload. Okay. You can do another exercise, you can do another set, you can do more reps to get overload, but the easiest thing is just lift more weight. Okay. Just lift a little bit more weight. And that's why the 5 to 8 pound dumbbells is a thing that's easy to point out to people. Right. People are doing the right thing. They're in there, they're working, they're just not lifting enough weights. And we got to try to combat all of that. Okay. So what we're going to do is I want you guys by Monday, okay? By Monday, I want you guys to have found your article. On Monday, we're going to talk about something called the FIT principle. And we're going to talk about the concept of PROS, which is progression, repetition, overload, and specificity, which is going to give us a framework for identifying if things are going to work. Okay. That. Please turn in what you did, okay? My Zoom group, y'all email it to me. And with that, go lift some heavy weights today or tomorrow. All right. Well, and we will meet here on Monday. I'll put that on Canvas. We'll meet here on Monday.
Do you happen to have any more, like the
I don't have one with me, but I can remember to try to bring some.
Okay, if not, I have copy paper, so,
Okay.
thank you.
You're welcome.
It's on my computer, so I just emailed it to you.
That's fine. That's fine. As long as I've got it, then we're in good shape.